with the notion that I'm farming, that is a farm to table kind of farming, or is it going into business? And today I'm joined by one of the experts in agribusiness. His name is Boniface, but I'm going to let him introduce himself so that I do not give him the wrong titles and mess up everything. So karibu sana.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
All right, so my name is Boniface Nyalol. I co-founded a company called Agribusiness, and basically what we do here is we help small and medium-scale farmers be able to get markets, and especially we target urban vendors as well as commercial kitchens. So what we're basically doing is giving them an opportunity, not just to do the farming, but once they harvest, be able to get a market to actually sell those produce.
So when you talk about agribusiness, what are we talking about? What does it entail?
I mean, I'm not going to go into the definition, but let me just look at a practical example. So today, if it's a young person, it doesn't really matter the age, right? It's a young person, it's a woman, it's a guy, or a male person, you know, a father, a mother. You really thinking you want to go into farming, but then what is the purpose of that farming, right? So basically it's almost you have a mindset that you're gonna be able to make this as your either everyday business or your part-time business, but there's always an aspect of business into it. Yeah.
So at what point does farming turn into a business? Is it when you say nimepeleka machungwa kwa market, now this is a business? At what point do we say now farming is a business?
I think a business basically is you have a product, you have someone who buys, right? And in that exchange of products against the money the person is giving you, then that's basically business, right? But of course, it's not something you just wake up and do. So what you will have to do is really look at what's the market need, right, for a specific product. What's the season in terms of also demand, because it varies. What are sort of like volumes of production? I mean, that's probably at an advanced level. But if you want to do it as a business, you have to approach it as a business also, right? It's not about picking a fork, or if you have a tractor, you know, just going to the farm to do the production. It's thinking, okay, once I do the production and I'm doing harvesting, where am I taking this? So you're looking at the entire value chain, right? From the farming to the selling point. Now, anybody can be part of an agribusiness anywhere in that value chain.
In between the farming to market.
So you can be a farmer who is doing this to sell the products. You can be an off-taker who is buying from the farmer to sell it to another vendor, or you can be the vendor. So you have a stall or you have a grocery shop where someone can come in, get the products, and pay money for it. Either way, there's always at one point an exchange of that agricultural produce and money. And so basically every single point in that process is a business. So you as a person thinking into venturing into this, then you have to think, what am I good at, and at what point is more lucrative for me? Because I think every point of business is lucrative for the businessman, but you gotta have the resources, the skills, and the know-how to actually do it. Yeah.
So when it comes to agribusiness, the vendor that we have, we call them the mama mbogas. Even that is agribusiness.
Yes, that's agribusiness. Yes, yes. Because at the end of the day, it's an agricultural produce involved in that exchange, right? Our perspective at Agribusiness, and I think one analogy that we need to change is, I'm a company that runs a platform, right? It's a digital platform. But that platform can't function without the mama mboga, and it can't function without the farmer, right? Now, the moment I start saying farming is for someone else, and, you know, selling the product is specifically for mama mboga, then I start creating biases of who needs to do what and who needs to do what, right? And then you start hearing the narrative of farming is for the old people, selling is for mama mboga, and then that's when a young person feels like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this, but that shouldn't be the case, right?
Yeah.
It's at the end of the day, the question is, can you sell the produce? And I think the backline for me is that it's a decent job.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at the entire supply chain, every point is a decent job.
Yeah.
We just created biases. And probably that's a conversation in another time of this interview. But the biases we created is also has undermined the sector, because the largest workforce is young people, but then those young people doesn't want to participate. What we need to look at is agribusiness is that entire supply chain. But at what point do you exchange a produce for money? So even if you're doing farming, eventually you're going to have to exchange that for money. That's already business, right? It's just that maybe you have to be patient for those produce to be ready to be able to sell it to someone else.
So when you talk about youth even engaging in business and agribusiness and farming, is there like a source of capital that they can go for so that they can be able to come into this field of agribusiness and say, now I'm a farmer, I'm engaged in agribusiness? Are there sources of capital that they can get?
Okay, so yes, and there's plenty of it for sure. So I think just the other day I was speaking to a couple of people and you can make money out of it, right? And it's still agriculture anyway.
Yes.
But when it comes to capital, I think the simple question is, what do you need the money for?
Yeah.
Right? That's the first question. The second question is, why should you be the one to get the money?
Yeah.
Right? Because look at this country and Africa basically. How many young people are here, right?
Yeah.
So if you wake up one morning and say, well, there's money available, I'm just going to go get it and do farming.
Yes.
Well, I think you're in for a surprise.
Yeah.
Because the guy who gives you money needs you to prove that you actually deserve that funding. You've heard of Youth Fund, right? You've had, currently there are actually different organizations that are doing both financing as well as like skill support for young people getting into farming.
Yes.
But I can tell you, not everybody is being given that opportunity,
Yeah.
right? They're giving people who they feel deserve. So answering the question of whether you deserve or you don't is in a matter of at what stage are you when you're asking for either
the funds,
or the skills, right? So if I wake up today, I'm out of the university and I ask someone for money, I don't deserve that money.
Yeah.
You know why? Because how am I going to use it, right? But besides that, when I'm getting out of the university, someone my age or someone within the age bracket of a youth is already doing an acre, right? So between that person and me, who deserves to get the money? They need the money to scale up, right?
Yes.
So let's face it, as young people, we do deserve to get the support. And I think we do deserve to get the money to do this. But we have to live to what we are asking.
Yes.
Right? So financing is available. Even like organizations, private organizations like ours are currently doing types of different farmings like contracted farming. For us at Free Agrimark, we're actually looking at building capacity in terms of training later on, as well as doing financing for some of the agricultural produce you're doing, because we do have a market in terms of demand. But then we're asking ourselves, where do we source? Right?
Yeah.
So then the next question is, because you're running this as a business, then you're asking yourself, if I do have a piece of land, or I have someone who has a piece of land, then we can collaborate, do farming, produce quality, fresh agricultural produce, and sell it to our clients.
Yes.
Right? So that's already an opportunity for a young person. A farm, right?
Yes, true.
And I can tell you, whether it's Twigger Foods, whether it's Apollo Ventures, whether it's M-Farm, and I'm counting all these companies that are very recognizable in this space, right? They are looking at how can they support farmers, because their customers are demanding for quality
products.
Their customers are demanding for constant supply.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you're not going to tell me that, for example, these companies will have to directly go do farming.
So that they can get
contracts, and then they have a young person. That's how you get money, because you don't get money for free.
Yes, right? You need to show.
Exactly. So the point where you get money, as I said, is how far are you in saying I deserve?
Yeah.
So start doing something.
Yes.
Right? We all come from, at least not all of us, but most of us grew up in probably urban, peri-urban, rural areas.
Yes. Yes.
But most young people, for sure, came from rural areas.
Yes. They know about the farm.
Exactly.
Yes.
Africa has the largest arable land. This country has large pieces of land that people can do farming.
Yes.
And they're just lying around.
Yeah.
Right? For you to get funding, whether you want to go back to your rural area or whether you want to get some money and pay someone to do the farming for you, in the rural area, do that quarter an acre, do that half an acre, do that acre.
Yes.
Plant products. And I can tell you this, if you can go and justify that I'm already doing a quarter an acre.
And this is what I have on my land.
This is what I have. I need to expand this, but I don't have money.
You're justified.
Exactly. It's a simple analogy, but it requires someone to actually go and do the work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. So we've learned that you do not always have atunadoitisha pesa. You need to start farming.
Here's the thing. If I ask myself money to go do farming, I wouldn't give myself.
That's
right?
true.
Yeah, because I would be like, why would I'd rather take this money. I'm already here in Nairobi. Let me do something else.
Yeah.
Now, that's also the analogy of why you can't give yourself money to do farming. Some young people do have money, right? Some don't.
Yes.
The ones who have never says, I want to do farming. Maybe some might, but they don't usually go and do it.
Yeah, they venture into other things.
Yeah, so why would then these same people say, I don't have money for farming, right?
Yes.
You either just don't have money, or you have money, but you don't want to do farming.
True. You either have or you don't.
Yeah, you either have or you don't.
Wow.
And if you don't, use your... So here's the thing. So you don't have, then work hard until you're able to have it.
Oh.
If you have, then hard and smart, then applies. Because we are implementing a technology, and every day I tell our staff that there's nothing like just smart work.
Oh,
right?
Nothing like just smart work. I'm going to cut you there off, Boniface.
Yeah.
We're going to short break so that you can come back and tell us there's something about smart work.
Yeah.
Working hard, also in farming, working hard is really efficient. It's something that is needed. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back to learn more about venturing into agribusiness as a youth.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
If Tekra was 100%, I used to just breathe in 5% of her brain, which was so smart.
You to God, but you do your part, you fight justice.
Mystery of floating bodies in River Yala continues to deepen after 7 more bodies were retrieved from the river.
Nobody had that right to take that life.
It's a bad feeling. Terrible.
When we got to court, we noticed a lot of surveillance on our team.
Nikiwafikiria ama nione picha zao, mimi nalianka usiku mzima. Hata kama vijana wangu hawatarudi, lakini sitawasahau.
This is the last door.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Shhh. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari. You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back to KILIMO Diaries. For those who missed the first part, my name is Violet Jackie and I'm joined by Boniface, an expert in the agribusiness sector. And he's telling us that even in farming, working hard is needed. You may go looking for capital. You may have it, you may don't, but you need to show why you have it, why you need it. You need it. And so, Boniface, you're telling us about the smart, working smart, even when it comes to farming. When we say that I come here with an acre and I'm asking for funds, is there at a point that you will tell me that, because these are the funds you're looking for, go for these crops, it will give this in return? Do I have to go with an open mind of like, I need this crop to give me this, I need that crop to give me that? Do we need to walk into this space with that in mind?
Yes. If you run a business, they're very simple rules, right? So one is why you're doing it. So you really have to answer that question yourself, right? So whether you want to create an impact, you want to earn an income, you want to be able to feed a group of people, or you want to support your family, there's always a reason why you're doing it. That's one. Now, your reason then will inform other things, right? So one is you have, if you're doing it, for example, to feed your family, then you have to think, what types of food do my family need, right? Then you're just gonna do the farming for that, right? If you're doing it for business, right? Now I'm back at where we were. Then the question is, who wants to buy it from you? Yes. I mean, you have to have that mindset. Yes. Because a lot of times I think, and for a lot of farmers, is you've had food spoil at different farms across the country. Yes. It is because I wake up in the morning and I'm just doing, I'm just planting. It can't be how we do agriculture. Yeah. We have to think in this country what is demanded, what is needed. Because if we all go and, for example, plant tomatoes, and during the harvesting period, it means we have more supply than we actually have demand, right?
So let me ask you a question with that. For Kenya, we say agriculture is the backbone of our economy. Yeah. And most of our farmers mostly engage in maize. Yes. Is it that we've pushed ourselves to one product that we don't see the mind of business in other products like outside of maize production?
Here's the thing. You walk across this town and you see M-Pesa everywhere and shops for boutiques everywhere, right? I don't know. This is what I ask myself. Who buys this stuff? Yeah. Right? Now, not that people can buy it, but I usually ask myself, and I think I've had this conversation with other startup founders, is, does it mean that this is the only thing that Kenyans need? Or does it mean that this is the only thing that Kenyans have seen they can do? Yes. Right? Because then you have to answer those two questions. And most of it is usually, I would, for example, walk in a place, see a lot of customers buying stuff, and I would think, well, that business is actually good. Yeah. Kenyans also have a funny way of investing. In Swahili, weni biashara gani inaweza fanya na 50,000? Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'll tell you M-Pesa, right? But there are other businesses. So diversification is important. So with that example, if you come to agriculture, I think for me, when I was growing up, a lot of times we did maize and beans, yes. Right? And that was in Western region. If you go to Narok, mostly you will find probably Irish potato. Narok, if you're going that, you'll be looking at potatoes, you'll be looking at onions and stuff like that. So then it gets embedded into sort of our own, I wouldn't want to call it culture, but to continue doing exactly what our parents did. Yeah. It's almost like your ancestors did that and your grandfathers did that, and it just continues, yeah. Right? And as much as young people would say, you know what, I've done this, I've been able to get the skills, I think the only day we see the skills and whether that is able to help is when we break the behaviors and the practices that has kept us very unproductive in this country to practices that then makes us to move to the next phase of development, right? So maize is needed, but beans is also needed. Potatoes, tomatoes, all those are needed, right? So then what we need to start thinking when you're going into this, and as you asked, do we need to think of a specific product? What you need to ask yourself is, there's already these volumes. Which area needs more products? Yes. Or which area needs new products, right? So if production of maize is already enough, but then you're hearing that there is a deficit of a specific product, then that tells you as a business person that that's an opportunity. And opportunity is also in farming just like everywhere. When there is a demand and the supply is low, that's where you want to venture. Yes. But when you see everybody else going into that space, why are you going with everyone? Because then you end up producing more than you can actually sell. And that drives costs down. Once it drives costs down, you start making losses, and then you're like, agriculture is not cool. No, you're not cool. You needed to think before you did it. You need to do a bit of research, right? And this is what I tell every young person. If you're gonna venture into this space, you need to think. You don't make money just by producing. You make money by producing what people are willing to pay for and people need it, right? And you also make decisions to do farming to produce a product that the market is not gonna be having low demand with higher supply. So today, if you ask me, and I was looking, for example, for this season, which products is in the market, I don't want to produce that. Because this takes time. You don't think on the day you have already harvested. You think a couple of months before you put those seeds on the ground.
So when you say that, it means that as a farmer who wants to plant their produce, you have to first look at the market. Like, what does the market need before I put I make my land, I put everything in the sand.
Let me give an example. So for example, avocado production, right? So if you're looking at avocados for export, usually the markets open here in the country between March and then it runs about 5 months, right? And then it closes. Now, intentionally, the government actually places a ban outside of those time periods. And that is to allow the avocados to mature and people who are unscrupulous not to cut immature avocados and then leave them to rot in the farm, making farmers to lose money, right? Now, it goes without saying that if you want to venture in that space, you need to intentionally think, how long will it take for my avocado to mature, and look at how can this fit within those kind of timelines. So that if I was told that avocado for export is good market, and I went there as a young person, and then I'm harvesting out of the export season, then instead of me saying, look, I'm not making anything, you would have made something if you did your market research. I mean, that's a basic example, and it applies to so many other products, right? You know, for example, Irish potatoes, all this comes in season. At some point, it comes from Narok, and another point, it comes from someone else, right? So you need to start thinking. And then, but besides that, you also need to think about the period when the weather is can allow the produce to also grow in maximum quantities. Exactly. So you're not just limiting yourself to when this product is not in the market, but you're also looking at, okay, what if the weather doesn't allow? And that's where smart farming comes in. We have people who decided, you know what, I'm not gonna wait for the long rains, I'm gonna do irrigation. No, that's being smart, right? So as far as being smart is concerned for me as a young person, it's limited to what's your strategy around every issue. It's not sit somewhere and say, maybe I can make money this way, and money is gonna make itself. Because I think also that's an analogy that a lot of us have. I'm not gonna go into the political issues of tenders and all that and being smart, but being smart is in terms of strategy. It's in terms of thinking. When is the best time to produce this product, and where is the best market to sell it? Now, young people are even building technological platforms, right? That now makes the value chain and the supply chain efficient. Right? Now, that is being smart. But it doesn't mean people at Agribusiness sit at home and make money. We wake up every day like everyone else, probably by 5 a.m. And we go back home every day, probably by 8. We work like everyone else. But we have a technology. Now that means we also have to work hard. We have to show up, right? So as a young person, being smart is not sitting down, right? Being smart is looking at how can I efficiently do this? How can I increase my profits the right way?
So that means technology is also a factor in agribusiness.
Extremely, extremely a significant factor today, right? Globally, agriculture has been able to, mechanization and everything globally is because of the integration in terms of technology. Right? So today, as a young person, if you're getting into agriculture, you need to think.
Technology.
You need to think technology. And I don't mean technology in terms of an application. I mean technology probably in terms of mechanizing the entire harvest or farming, right? Because then it allows you to do much more large scale than you would have done if you didn't implement technology. It would open you to larger markets than if you didn't. And here's the thing. If you have more choices, you can make more money. If you only have one choice, which traditionally used to be just middlemen who come to your village, then you have to sell it at the price they
offer you. You have no options.
If you have other offers, you can always say, you know what, it's okay. You can go get somewhere else because you've got someone offering you.
I know my worth. I know the worth of my market.
Exactly. But you see, you have a product to sell. So you're not just saying, I know my worth, but you're saying, this is what I'm going to sell it at. If you're not going to buy it, I'm going to get somewhere else to sell it. And it's because you actually have somewhere else. Because if you try to tell someone that I have somewhere to sell it, but you don't have, no, your produce is going to rot in the farm.
So even as we wind up Boniface, what advice would you give to a youth who wants to venture into agribusiness? What do they look out for? And how do they make sure that they succeed in this platform?
Okay, so first, like every business, it's risky. If you want to get into agribusiness or any other business, there's always a risk tag to it. In fact, not getting into any other business still is a risk, right? So you have to sit down and start thinking, what are my strengths? What can I do, right? And then start also thinking about what available resources do I have? And more importantly, start. If you have a small piece of land, it's your grandma's, it's your mom's, it's yours, nobody cares. Just go do the farming. Produce your first volume. See how the market looks like. Make the little amount they add into something. So my important advice would be, go out there. If you have a small piece of land, if you have a bit of money, even if you don't, most people just grab the fork, go do the farming, produce what they need to produce. And over time, I have friends who are currently doing 20 acres. They were not doing 20 acres 3 years, 2 years ago. They were doing a small piece of land and we used to visit and we could talk about it. And also more importantly is have young friends who are probably extremely motivated, have the right skills also, right? And the right networks. Because at the end of the day, whether you do the farming, if you don't have someone to get you the market, that's a crisis. If you start the farming and you want to scale and you don't have someone who can introduce you to where there's available money, that's a crisis. There's always a risk at some point. But the best way to limit that risk is get the right networks, get the right friends, and people who actually straight up say, hey, I think you're too lazy. You can do better, right? Or you can say, look, here's the thing. You're my friend, but unfortunately, what I'm looking for right now doesn't seem to fit us in the same group. Here's the thing. The world hates you, but at the end of the day, do you want to make the sacrifices that are worth it? Or you want to just stick there around because you want to move with the crowd? Because the crowd doesn't help a lot.
Thank you so much, Boniface, for your insights. There are a lot of questions that we haven't answered, and I'm hoping we get to do this again so that we can answer more questions on agribusiness. That is all we had for you, and Boniface here has told us, even in farming, just start. No matter how small your land is, just start. But remember, research your market, know the technology that is out there, and then